Okay, so I'm going to kick off. My name's Tracy Forsyth. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of a virtual confidence academy called Fast Track to Fearless. And it is my pleasure to be hosting this How to Present Yourself for Success webinar for RTS Futures. And I am joined by a panel of illustrious guests, some of the movers and shakers of the creative industries and beyond. They're going to introduce themselves in a minute, but just top line, we have Lyndsay Duthie in the fuchsia, I think that pink is called, is the CEO of the Production Guild of Great Britain. We have Joe Bret-Day, talent recruiter for FLB Accountants, LLP, and Samuel Ampah, senior media accountant at Alliots, and he is somewhat of a LinkedIn star. So if you're not already linked in, link in with Samuel. Yes, so this session is really going to be about how to present yourself for success, guiding you through different aspects of your career on how to present yourself, right from the very start, before you've even got an interview, to when you're well established in a company. We're going to be looking at asking about, do first impressions really count? Do they matter? And how you become an asset to your company or your workplace or the people that you work with for more than just your work. You know, I think they call it invisible PR, what people say about you when you're not in the room. How do you make that happen? All right, so first things first, I would love to ask the panel one by one just to introduce themselves briefly and explain why this subject matter is dear to their heart. So Lyndsay, would you mind going first? Then we'll go to Samuel, then we'll go to Joe.
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for having me, RTS, as well. So my background is in television production. So worked as a researcher up through the ranks, producer, director, executive producer, working at ITV for a good chunk of time, 10 years. I then moved over to creative education and was head of school at various universities and a professor of media, and then over to the Production Guild of Great Britain, which is a membership organisation for those working in film and high-end television in the production office. So we have, producers working on James Bond, Mission Impossible, all of the big shows, Netflix shows and so forth that you can think of. So really amazing network of people. So why is this important to me? Well, having been sort of both sides, having seen how it is when you're coming up through the ranks and getting used to, having to sell yourself, really. There's no point staying at home. Jobs aren't necessarily going to come to you. You've got to get yourself out there. And this industry really thrives on that. So you have to learn the ropes fairly quickly. And it is intimidating. And it doesn't matter if you're giving an Oscar-winning speech, which I hope many of you will be doing at some point, or it's your very first interview. It's still nerve-wracking because you care. If you care about something, you're going to have that kind of feeling of excitement and nerves as well. So there are tips and tricks that you can do, and I won't expand on that because I'm sure that'll be the next round of questions. But it really does make a difference. If you can put that prep in to present yourself, you will be so much more successful, so much more quickly as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lyndsay. Can I just a reminder just to mute yourselves until asked to come off unmute. And also there's going to be a Q&A later. So if you've got any cues, any questions, put them in the Q&A section. So Sam, what have you got to say about this? Why is it so important to you?
So this is a very important subject to me, mainly because I'm a media accountant. So we constantly work on different productions, constantly engage with different freelancers, different individuals within the industry. And quite soon as I entered into the industry, I realized this is a very people-person industry. Therefore, the way in which you present yourself is actually extremely important, especially because most of the workers within the production are freelance. So if you don't present yourself properly at the beginning, it's very likely you're going to have a sustainable career within film or TV. So for me, it's important for an individual to present themselves in order just to continue going. Yeah. So as soon as I noticed that, and as soon as I realized that you need to always be out there, always need to be networking, always need to be talking to the next person, because the next person could be your next employer. I felt it was as simple as that. So since then, I've been really taking a real strong interest in the subject, and I guess that's what's led me here with you guys. So yeah, it's very important, and it's not a situation where you start when you're mid-tier or you start later on. It's actually you start soon as you enter, because as you build your network, it gets easier and you meet more people.
Yeah, absolutely. I started as a freelancer on a 3-month contract, and I realized that
Yeah.
talent and hard work are not enough. You have to be able to
Yeah.
hustle. And as an introvert and all of that kind of thing, just had to be able to do it. Joe, tell us about you and what's your passion for this subject matter?
I've been in recruitment for probably more years than I care to remember, but I think I've always been a people person, and I think that's what's kept me in the role. So I've worked agency side, headhunting side, client side. And I still, after all these years, get a buzz out of placing somebody and placing them in the right job. And I think what's lovely about being where I am now is that I get to then see them grow, having been here for 3 years. It's a special thing. And I think with something like this, it's such a lovely opportunity to help someone onto that first step. Because it's so daunting. You've come out of education, you think you're the bee's knees, you've got whatever degrees, etc., but you're then taking that next step down into the big wide world. And I think if I can give anyone a couple of tips on how to take that first step, those steps are the foundations, I think, for your future.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I agree. I think there's too much talent goes to waste because people don't know how to sell themselves, don't or feel uncomfortable doing it. So let's just start off with before you've even got an interview, before you're even at a place of work, how do you present yourself for success? And I think one area we're going to talk about is LinkedIn, right? So Lyndsay, what are your tips on this? What do you feel about this?
Yeah, I think the power of LinkedIn is really, really strong if you use it well, but you have to be quite sensible about it. You have to park perhaps the sort of jokey names you might have on Instagram with your friends. You've got to really think about who your audience is and what you're trying to achieve, really, where your direction of travel is going, so that you can start to brand yourself accordingly. So even if you are fresh out of college or uni and you haven't had your first job, you can start to show your passion and your interest. You can start to demonstrate you're reading around the subject by the kind of things that you're tweeting, messaging, forwarding, posting about as well. So you have to it's about thinking about your brand, really. Who is it you're trying to be? What is it you want to achieve, and lining that up. But you can do some really good research as well. So have a look at people you admire. If you think you want to be a producer, have a look at producers you admire. How are they selling themselves? Which is essentially is what you're doing. You're marketing yourself on LinkedIn, aren't you? And creating a network around that. Think about the images that you're using, what your banner looks like, what your bio says about you. I'm at the kind of reverse stage of where a lot of you probably are at the beginning of your career. I've been working in industry for 30 years and I've done so many different things. If I try and tell my story all in one go, it's just too confusing. So sometimes I have to actually pare it back and think about, well, if I tell them all of these things, they're just going to be like, I didn't latch on to that. Because remember, and I'm sure Tracy will tell us, people only listen to, was it like 7% of what you say or something? The rest is body language, context, and so forth. So sometimes it's just thinking about, what are the messages I'm trying to give? What's the story I'm trying to tell? And where am I going? And it's fine if you change your mind, if you start working in the industry and go, actually, I'm not a producer anymore. I'm actually really into visual effects, or I'm actually, that's fine. You can rebrand and sort of realign yourself. But put yourself in the mindset of who you want to be and start marketing yourself accordingly, I suppose. There's much more I can say, but I'll let the others jump in as well.
Fabulous. And from your point of view, Joe, as a recruiter, how important are things like LinkedIn, and what are your tips there?
I think, yeah, as Lyndsay said, it's about the brand. So I would add to that, I think it's a great suggestion about looking at people you admire, but also find out about you. I think everything stems from understanding yourself, which isn't always an easy thing. I think we sometimes take way too many years to actually work out what it is that makes us tick. So I would say sit down with some friends, sit down with maybe an aunt or an uncle, maybe not your mum and dad, because they're going to have a certain view on you, but sit down with some people and say, so how do I come across? What's good? What's bad? What can I, who do you think, how do I come, who am I? And I think once you've got that understanding of you, the rest, it should naturally progress. Writing the CV, doing the interview. I think it's understanding brand you.
Yeah. Like you say, easier said than done. I mean, that's adult development, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but we do it too late.
Yeah, such brilliant advice. And Sam, you're
I just say
obviously,
something?
oh, sorry.
Sorry, can I jump in there? It does feel a bit uncomfortable when you first start doing it, when you start kind of promoting yourself. It's like, does anyone really care I'm at this event? Or does anyone, you know, why am I saying this? But it does really make a difference, because people will say, I've seen you at all these things. Wow, you're doing so much. So you kind of have to let go of some of that uncomfortableness and try things. You won't always get it right, as long as you're polite, courteous, and all of those kind of things. But you know, see what works. Like Joe said, see how you kind of find out about who you are really as you do
I think
that.
that's true.
Sorry,
I mean, I know that there's a statistic that says that we scroll the height of the Statue of Liberty every day. So your little thumb is doing this. I always joke that that's me before 9 a.m. on Vinted. You know, I've already done the Statue of Liberty. But if you think about that and how much it takes for us to either stop or swipe, it's like a nanosecond. So when you come across on LinkedIn, if you're like loading it up with like loads and loads of stuff, the brain is actually hardwired to filter out and ignore unnecessary stuff. It's like if somebody gives you directions and gives you like, turn this to that, you go through the alleyway there. Most people only remember the first one or two things. So to Lyndsay's point, you know, and Joe's point, it's like, really figure out what is your key message. What is the one thing that if they stop on you that you would want them to understand, and no amount of kind of repeating it. You know, if you think about advertising and all that kind of thing, you get told the same thing again and eventually you buy. It's the same with us. But I just want to ask Sam, so you obviously use LinkedIn and love LinkedIn. What would you add to this conversation?
I think I'll echo a lot of what Joe and Lyndsay have said. Ultimately, it is brand. You are building your own brand, and I don't want people to go away and think, "Oh, I've got to have a brand today." Actually, it's a developing thing. As you go along, you'll build that brand. You'll find out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and you sort of develop it from there. Like I would say with LinkedIn, I've tried it all with it. I've done the commenting, I've done the articles, I've done videos, you know, I've done posting. And I found that, okay, actually, I don't enjoy maybe the article writing as much. Therefore, I'll focus on maybe the videos a little bit more. So I think it's important to find out what works for you and then take it from there and build on that. And it's exactly what Lyndsay and Joe was saying as well, that it's important that you sort of understand, okay, this isn't just for today. You need to be consistent with it. You need to build on it. You need to find people who are similar to you, and you go from there. I'm a massive fan of, you know, joining groups with people with like-minded interests. You know, that's a really good way of, you know, putting yourself out there, because actually, ultimately, the person next to you's got a very similar interest in as you. So if you're into VFX, you know, join a group that maybe is going to be around the new technology within the VFX industry. If you're into, I don't know, animation, you know, there's plenty of groups out there that you can join. And ultimately, if there isn't a group out there, you can create a group. You know, people are always looking for people to, you know, to connect with. And LinkedIn is no different to Twitter or to Facebook. But ultimately, it's a little bit more professional. So you're connecting in a professional sense rather than maybe a more joking, more trivial sense. But there is that opportunity, and you just keep building from there. And you build your network and people around you.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think you're right. LinkedIn is really built up to showcase your personal brand. You know, your photos, they've got section there for featured work. The other thing I was going to add is that you can ask for recommendations or testimonials. And going back to Joe's point about surrounding yourself with people who know you, getting a testimonial or a recommendation or having somebody else write something about you, I think is incredibly powerful, because we often look at ourselves through a very self-critical lens. And most people that I know and work with can tell me chapter and verse about what's wrong with them, but very struggle to say, you know, what they're really good at, even though they are good at so many things. And it's only when you see yourself described by other people that you suddenly have the words and this image of how you come across to others. So that would be my top tip for LinkedIn, is everything that these guys have said, but also get into the habit early on of asking for feedback and recommendations. It's really, really powerful. If we were selling a product, we would get testimonials, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing it does. Sorry, go on.
No, go on, Joe.
I was going to say, over and above a CV, that is the joy of LinkedIn. You've got a photo on there, make sure it's appropriate. and you've got the recommendations, and you've got that chance to link up with people. So it's giving you so much more. A CV gives you so much, but LinkedIn actually brings you to life and allows you that creativity that I don't think you should have almost on a CV. It allows you that chance to express who you are a little bit more.
It's almost like for the 3 or 4D version, whereas the
Yeah.
might be the 2. Yeah. So listen, if you're thinking about LinkedIn, or if you haven't landed an interview yet, and you're networking, you're reaching out to people, one of the things that people really worry about is cold approaches, or certainly how to be persistent but not be perceived as pushy. Personally, I think pushy is just another word for driven. But what's your take on that? Who wants to go? Lyndsay, do you want to start off again?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you have to do it. I think, but there's a certain way of doing it, particularly if, let's say you're at an event or you're at a panel talk, and you're really impressed by the speakers on stage. Reaching out to them afterwards is a great way of connecting. A little bit of flattery is always good. That's quite hard to ignore if somebody is genuinely engaged with what you're doing, or your program output, or whatever it is that you're working on. But you do have to develop a little bit of a thick skin, because you won't always get a reply, and that's not necessarily, I mean, I hope people will reply as much as possible, but we all know how many emails and different kind of traffic we're getting in throughout the day. So you mustn't take it necessarily personally, and it's fine to go back again. If it's something urgent, obviously go follow up again. But in a month's time, in a year's time, it's always about timing, sometimes about when your kind of email hits. And I know from when I worked in a large daytime department at ITV, so we had hundreds on our team. We were recruiting, sort of sporadically. If someone left, you would have those kind of CVs landed, and you might just come in at the right time, to be included in that next batch, or so forth. So you've got to be persistent. You have to be a bit respectful too, so you can't get really annoyed saying, I emailed you last week and you haven't replied and I'm really cross. You just have to sort of let it go a little bit, but sometimes play the long game. Someone's not necessarily going to have a job instantly for you. I mean, obviously it depends what it is you're following up on, but just build that relationship, that dialogue, keep them on your radar. Perhaps send them a post just saying, I saw this article and thought it would be really relevant to you, or like a post they've done. Just kind of keep them bubbling so you're on that radar. So sometimes it's about playing that long game.
Yeah.
So yes, I think have resilience, a bit of a thick skin, a long game, a bit of flattery, always be polite. An enthusiastic person is very hard to ignore or ever be cross with. So, keep that showing. And just one kind of reflective point on the LinkedIn thing, it's not about the likes on LinkedIn. So if you're only getting 2 or 3 likes, don't worry about that. People are still seeing it. So, just start to develop that inner belief, I guess.
Yeah, such great advice. Jo, what about you? How to be persistent but not so-called pushy?
Yeah, I think as Lyndsay said, it's being respectful, but it's also you are owed you want a response. You want to know that they've got your application, that they've seen you, and you can see that on LinkedIn. But if you've sent in an email or something, it is just saying, look, just touching base, just checking you got if you could let me just know that you've received my CV, or you've received my application for something, so you've got that understanding that it's got there, because sometimes it can get lost in the ether. If you know somebody there, I always, if you're applying for something, check out the people on LinkedIn. Do you know anybody who's working there? Could somebody actually go and put in a good word for you and go, oh, I believe my friend's daughter's second cousin twice. It doesn't matter what the connection is. If someone can actually go and go, oh yeah, I believe she's applied, do check her out, she's great. Or it never, I think that's quite a nice way of being pushy as well. But I'm more than happy if someone drops me an email and goes, oh hi, I sent you my CV a couple of weeks ago, any news? And I'll think, as Lyndsay said, we all get piles and piles of communication. Someone nudging me like that, I appreciate. But yes, take the right tone.
Yeah. And we are it's important to reflect, I think, that we're going through an extraordinary time, certainly in unscripted television right now, aren't we? So there is a lot of talk in the press about ghosting and people not getting back to people. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, so people might be experiencing that at the moment as well. Sam,
and I hope that we'd always try and be kind and offer, if you can't help, give them a try this website, or something. But let's say some things do just fall through.
Yeah. Sam, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with both Lyndsay and Joe says. But I also want to add that you do have to kiss a lot of frogs, to really, you really do. You gotta understand that it may not be that person who you want to reply to you, but you need to keep on going.
Yes.
Find a lot of people in that area, email them. I think flattery is key. If I get a nice email, oh, Sam, we saw you at an event, we really liked whatever, I will reply. I'm like, oh, thank you. So everyone loves it. And ultimately, everyone has been where you have been. So if you're just starting, everyone has just started at some point. And actually, people want to pass the knowledge. People want to meet up and ensure that the next group of people aren't making the same mistakes as they did. So it's really important that you do reach out and you do have a thick skin, because some people won't reply. That's just the game. That's just how it works. But the ones that do reply, you need to, understand it might not be them who directly gives you your next opportunity, but they may have a friend. So if they replied and nothing's come out of it, and maybe you felt like the meeting was a waste of time, just hold fire. Just hold fire. Keep in communication. Try and connect with them as much as possible, and you never know what can happen. I've met people 1 year and I haven't spoken to them for like 3 years, and then something's come out of it. But it wasn't a waste of time, because ultimately something has come good. So I think just consistency, persistence, and the ability to, take knockbacks is going to be very important, especially starting out.
Yeah. I mean, it's always, creative industry has always been a tough industry. Yeah. Always had more people wanting to do it than there was space available. So, yeah. And I actually, the value, I think the thing that I think about is it's developing professional contacts. It's not a one-hit wonder. And, I recently got hired by somebody I met on my very first job 30 years ago, and we have not been in contact, we've not chatted, but she's been following me on LinkedIn, et cetera, and then we ended up doing something. So this is like creative industries it's for the long haul. Yeah. Okay.
I think you can play a bit of a numbers game with it as well. I'm thinking when I got my first job at ITV, I literally, and this is back in the day when you had to handwrite letters, I'm that old. I wrote to about 200 before I got it. And I was just like, this is just never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And the letter actually from ITV arrived, and it got stuck in a newspaper when it had been delivered. So it'd been there for about a week without me seeing it. So I was in complete panic mode then, like, oh my goodness, I've lost my final break to get in. So as soon as I did my work experience, I literally didn't leave for 10 years. I was like, I'm holding on to this job, and moved through. So do approach it methodically. If you're looking for a job, apply to 5 a day, write out, just keep going back through the cycle. Just work through, just a bit of resilience. It will happen. I mean, it is an extraordinary time at the moment in film and television, but we know that will turn a corner again for sure.
Can I also add that you might not necessarily get the role or that you want, but actually just getting a foot in the door is also quite important as well. So yeah, that I just wanted to add that, because I think a lot of people get disheartened that they're not maybe getting the role that they want, and then they're knocking back other opportunities. But actually, opportunities, you can go into many different things and find yourself eventually where you want to be. And actually, a lot of the people I know that have maybe taken maybe a diver, or it wasn't a direct switch, actually better at their job because they got that experience of being in other places. They know how to work, really, and that's really important as well. Just
brilliant.
Taking any opportunity.
Fabulous, thank you. I'm just aware of time. I'm going to move us on. Joe, you've seen hundreds and thousands of CVs, I should imagine, by now as a recruiter. What are your top tips to stand out from the crowd, grab the recruiter's attention with your CV?
I think keep it simple. No one is expecting when you've just graduated or come out of college, for you to have this 4-page, and quite frankly, even when you have got a 4-page CV, I think the statistic is your CV gets about 30 seconds and most people don't get beyond the first 2/3 or something. So keep it simple, keep it readable. Don't fill it with graphics. As I said, I think LinkedIn, you will get plenty of opportunities to show your creativity. What you want from a CV is, think about the most tired person sitting there with a pile of CVs. What they want to see is dates. They want to see your qualifications. What have you done? But they're not expecting you to have set the world on fire yet. What they want to know is, are you someone you've done your education? Are you motivated to have done things outside of education? Have you done a job where you've got some people skills, that you're not just used to dealing with those classmates that you've been with for years and years and years, that you've had to gain some sort of social etiquette, some deadlines, some, can you follow instruction? It's basic things like that. And don't be afraid to put, I always remember thinking, well, all I've done is worked at Sainsbury's and helped with my dad's job or something like that. But that still shows that you haven't just sat there over the summer holidays. You've gone out, you've found something. So keep it simple, keep it readable. If there's gaps, fill those gaps in. If you did go away and do the years traveling, write years traveling. So they want to see that you're reliable. It's really a CV is the advert for you. This is what you're getting when you get me. But you can only really sort of keep it from the factual point of view. So I think that to me is really, make sure also you've got your contact details on there. The amount of CVs I look at and I haven't got contact and I think, well, I want to give you a call. I'm in the mode now. I want to give you a call. Oh, there's no phone number on there. My email goes to junk. You don't bother to check your junk.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity that could be missed. I get that every year when we recruit grads. I haven't got a phone number or something to text on, so my email gets lost, which is really frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think things like interests, put interests on there. So you've got your sort of introduction about you. If you want to do a little 60-second elevator pitch, this is what you get when you meet me. Your education first until you've got some experience behind you. Put the experience on there, just job title, date, what you've done. Interests are great as they're a great talking point, but one of my bête noirs is people who say socializing and shopping. Make it something you can talk about. Are you into film, particularly if you're going into the creative industries? If you're into reading, well, be prepared to be asked, well, what was the last book you read? What was the last film you saw? What's your favorite Netflix series? Don't put anything that you can't then talk about. 'Cause 9 times out of 10, I think interests are on there to break the ice. Certainly, if I see someone's a bit nervous, I'll go, oh, I see you support Liverpool, or you've got a cockapoo, or it's there just to help put that person, and just to show again you beyond the experience, the sort of work experience bit.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. So let's move on now to, you've landed an interview. Yeah. If we talk about presenting yourself for success, what do you do beforehand? What do you do in the interview? What do you do after the interview? Lyndsay, do you want to kick us off again?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think you need to think about what you're going to wear. Does that match the company that you're going into? It might be all right to wear smart jeans and a top if that's the kind of trendy graphics house that you're going to. But, think about wearing a suit, and just, it shows that you're taking it really seriously, that you really want it as well. So I would say, and that will also give you some confidence as you walk into that room. When I used to work with students, we used to do interview techniques, and they'd come in with their anorak on and a sort of cup of coffee, and it would just be like, take your coat off, put your coffee away, just look like you're in that moment. So just think through those things. I appreciate if you're traveling in, it might be raining or something, but try and put your coat down somewhere so you look, when you're going into the interview room, ready and prepared to go. Practice. Think about the kind of questions you might be asked. What is it that gives you your USP? Now, appreciate if you're starting out in your career, that can be difficult because you haven't got necessarily that raft of experience, but just think about what are the brand values of that company or that channel channel that you're working for. If you're going for a you know, a program job, think about the kind of content they make, the kind of celebrities they work with, the kind of shows they're doing, just so that you're, you know, online with that. The amount of interviews I did when I was working in television production, and they'd say, I don't watch TV much. And you'd just be like, why are you here? I don't get it. And I appreciate now younger people aren't watching TV in the traditional sense, but, you know, we've got catch up and we've got all of those services. So you need to know what the zeitgeist is. You know, what's everyone talking about? If it's the traitors, which was the big thing, you know, we're now talking about high-end reality TV. You know, that's the thing that we're all sort of buzzing about for that. Or, you know, for Netflix's big show, the One Day's drama or something. You need to show that you're kind of plugged in. So do have a think about that. I like practicing in the car when I'm driving, thinking about the kind of questions they might ask. Usually the first one is tell me a little bit about yourself. So you can at least have that kind of down to pat for a 30-second thing. Role play with somebody. So yeah, prepare as much as you can. And as Joe said, if you have worked in a supermarket or in a restaurant or, you know, had some job, that does show that you've got some stamina and some motivation to do things. But see how you could flip it to say, it was amazing when I worked in Sainsbury's because I'd come up with little characters around the, you know, the different people that were putting their shopping through, and I'd create little scripts in my mind. That would stick out in my mind if I was recruiting. I'd be like, oh, they're properly creative. They're properly, now don't all say that now in your interviews if I interview any of you now.
We'll take
But
that
you know,
one.
it has to be authentic to you, because you will see through it quite quickly if not. So yeah, but you've got to do it. You've got to face the fear and get out there and do it, and just think, even if I don't get this job, it's good practice for the next one. It's a good learning experience.
Yeah, and I think that preparation is key, isn't it? Even if you're not naturally, you wouldn't naturally consider yourself an extrovert and brilliant at speaking. I mean, I never was, you know, but if you prepare that almost like a script and practice it until it comes over as natural, it's almost like press go and then out comes your thing, you know. So I think that's super useful. And Joe, you know, how else do you make a lasting impression in the interview?
It is that first moment. Be positive. Go in with a smile on your face, a smile and a handshake. As Lyndsay said, do make an effort. I think even when people say dress down, make sure you're in something that's comfortable, that's not going to, you know, detract from them. They're going to be so busy looking at something wild on your t-shirt that they sort of go, oh, sorry, what was that? You want to get their attention. A big smile. If you get nervous, if you're feeling just a little bit jittery before, listen to a song that makes you happy. Have an image in your head of someone that makes you smile, someone you love that makes you smile. Have a little mantra. Do something for a couple of minutes before that just gets you in the right. So when that person comes through the door, you're already sitting there, you're already smiling, you're already looking like, yeah, I'm up for this conversation. This is going to be great. I've done my homework. I know who it is. You know, I get frustrated. I send my LinkedIn when I'm inviting people for interview, and they don't bother to go and look on it first. Make sure if you can do any homework, you've done it, because then the more prep you do, the more this becomes a conversation.
Yeah,
it works both ways. You know, you both want to make sure you're doing, this is going to be the right move for both of you. So I think that's really key. And make sure if it's a Teams call, make sure you've got the right setting, that you've got nothing distracting behind you, that they can hear you, they can see you, they can see your face, and not. I've done a few where I've just seen up people's noses and things, and you just sort of think, no, make sure that everything is in place so you can put the best you across.
Yeah. It's that whole thing about like, I always say I just said to my son who just did his driving test, just go with the attitude that you're going to enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, you know, enjoy that
and
conversation.
You should, if you've done your prep,
yeah,
it's a chat about, is this the right job for me?
Yeah.
Am I the right person for them? And they're thinking the same thing. So it shouldn't be. And I think if you are nervous, say you're nervous, because I think that shows you're bothered.
Yeah, and a few deep breaths before you go. Those nerves are really your body trying to get you ready for something exciting.
It's adrenaline. It's positive adrenaline is how you should try and see it.
Yeah.
And I think you need to remember that the interviewer actually wants you to do well, because you want to find someone to hire. So they really aren't trying to, they might try and catch you out just to make sure you are who you say you are, but they want you to do well because you want to make an appointment at the end of that.
I know the easier you make it for them, the easier their life is. Yeah. So Sam, what about you? Like, what are your top tips for making a lasting impression? And also, can you take us through what to do after an interview?
Yeah, sure. To make a lasting impression, I think a smile. I think a smile goes a long way. I always try and show confidence, even if you don't feel necessarily that confident. But you show confidence by being prepared. If you're prepared, you're more confident. So in an interview, I've been on both sides. I've been interviewed and done the interviewing, and I always felt like I want this to be a conversation. I don't want it to be that a situation where I'm just reading the next question after the next question. In most cases, if I feel myself doing that, it's not going well. It needs to be a situation where it feels like a conversation. And I always try and imagine that it's like what Joe said, it's not just an interview for getting a job, it's also an interview whether I want the job. So there's much of as being interviewed as myself. I think after an interview, I think the best thing is just to, I guess, wait and see. You know, don't be too disheartened if you don't get the phone call. Ask for feedback. What if you don't get a job? What was it that you did wrong, or what could I improve on? Things like that go a long way, and it shows yet again that you care and you want to improve. But ultimately, that's what we're all trying to do. We're all trying to improve. We're all trying to move to a better place. So that's what I tend to do. I always ask for feedback if it doesn't go too well, and see who did they hire. Like, what was it about them? Was it experience? Was it that they just thought more naturally fit to the team? What was it? Once you find that out, you can take that into your next interview.
Yeah. So now, Lyndsay, I would always write a little thank you note after an interview and say, lovely to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Would you do that?
Yeah.
I'd be too eager. I wouldn't be able to wait.
Yeah, I would too. I would have made sure I'd linked in with them. I would have, done everything to connect, because they're now part of your network, whatever happens. As we say, we're playing the long game. We all kind of bump into each other in different guises in different roles along the way. So yeah, I absolutely would. But I love Sam's advice as well about, if it isn't you that they hire, who was it and what was the difference? And you can kind of measure. We can't be sort of rose tinted glasses. It will hurt if you haven't got that job. If it was the one that you thought you really, really wanted, of course you're going to feel but I think you have to have that inner belief that there's something better coming for you, and that bit of trust that, okay, we go again, that was positive, we've learned some things, I'm going to be better prepared for the next thing. And you just got to, as I said, just keep going, because it will happen. And as I said, don't be despondent of where the industry is at the moment, because that will change again.
It will evolve, won't it? It's all part of life's rich tapestry. Yeah. So Joe, what's a winner for you after you've interviewed people? What do you like to see?
I do like at the end of it, a handshake, a thank you for taking the time. I'm really excited about this opportunity. Just make me feel like that last half an hour you've engaged and you're still keen, or indeed if you have got other things, let the person know afterwards. But I agree, a little email. Do check for typos, because that is something I get a lot. Someone saying about attention to detail and then throwing a couple of Z's in the middle of it, and you're just like, just take the time to read things through, be it your CV, your LinkedIn. And that's something else I would add. Make sure your LinkedIn and CV, everything reads from the same script. Sometimes you have something on one and something on the other, and you sit there going, oh, wait, is this the same person? But yeah, I agree. I think a thank you, there is no harm in saying thank you for your time.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to hearing from you. That will always stick in my psyche, because as someone said, it might not be right this time round, but you were just pipped to the post, because let's face it, you do get a lot of people for one job.
Yeah.
But keep it all positive, and you would think, oh, hang on a second, who was that guy we saw for their last role? We weren't able to take them on, but find their details. It is get inside someone's head in a positive way, and you can't go wrong.
It reminds me of that Maya Angelou quote: people won't remember what you say, people won't remember what you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. By human connection, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, all right. So let's move on to, you've got the job, you're in the office, or you're in the working environment, whatever that may be. Sam, how do you come across as confident but not cocky in a junior role? And I don't know is that such a bad thing anymore? I don't know. What's the difference between confident and cocky?
I think there's a little bit of a difference. I think confidence is just knowing who you are, knowing what you're trying to achieve, where cocky, I think, is more in a way that you're trying to impact those around you in a way. I don't know. That's how I see it. I think in a junior role, there is a way of coming across confident and not cocky, and that's asking questions. Always asking why you're doing something, how can we improve it. If you keep on asking questions, that it shows that you want to learn. But the fact that you're asking the question shows that you're confident enough to ask. You know, that sort of way. So I do enjoy when people ask questions. They question why we're doing something. They question how can they improve. Stuff like that goes a long, long way. And I think in a junior role, you're purely there to learn. I think people get a bit mixed up. They're there to do another job. I think if you're coming in an entry level role, you're there to learn, pick it up, and as you progress, that's where I guess a little bit more cocky side to come out. Whilst you're junior, just learn. That's what I think it is.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, I think confident is like cockiness is like when you're more confident than you actually know. You know, like so. That's that kind of like arrogance almost, isn't it? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And Lyndsay, you've worked in a lot of bigger companies, you know, like ITV, etc. So how do you, you know, in terms of presenting yourself for success, how do you do that? How do you show initiative in a corporate structure like that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, as you said, it's about how you can shine. So you may be in that junior role and learning, but I'm thinking about when I was a researcher at ITV, we would have sort of, you know, company briefings about what they were looking for next, and no one would expect the researchers necessarily to, or the junior researcher. I think I was an audience researcher booking tickets for, you know, people to sit in studio audiences to start with. But I would just keep putting forward my ideas. But as I said, in a really nice sort of humble way, not in a kind of like, this is the best thing ever and you must read it. But it kept me on that radar all the time. And you know, if somebody believes in you, they will champion you. And in this industry, you can be promoted quite quickly and move through in those production roles. So, you know, I was really lucky, but also I created my own luck, I guess, by having conversation with senior members saying, you know, could I buy you a coffee at some point when you've got time? Could you just tell me how, you know, how you got there, or how should I handle this situation? You know, and obviously, you know, just be mindful of their time and so forth. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, they'll want to help you and do that. And I then ask people to mentor me. And having a mentor is incredibly valuable to have as well, because they will just help steer you, and you can have those kind of honest conversations about, you know, how do I shine and not, you know, annoy my boss that's thinking I'm going above my station or something. Now, how do I get the attention of the, you know, of the top floor or whatever as well. So I think you have to be you, though. You know, you have to be authentic to you. As Sam says, you're there to learn. So maybe not on day one go in with, I'm about to, you know, change your whole business plan and I know what I'm doing. So choose your moments. But, you know, if you're enthusiastic, you know, you can't hide that. You know, you want to be able to show that as well in the best possible way. A smile gets you out of a lot of problems, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think learning is two ways. You know, I think reverse mentoring is going to make a fall, because, you know, like, you know, Gen X's, you know, that's me, you know, grew up in an analog age, you know, so we were pre-digital. And now I think I'm going to learn a lot more from Gen Z and Gen Alpha than they would necessarily learn from me. There might be some life experience and, you know, how to do things, but in terms of like audiences and how people watch content, I'm fascinated by what I can learn from
I think
people.
it's true. I mean, if you're too quiet at the start, you're going to start to develop that imposter syndrome and just think, oh, how do I ever sort of speak up? You know, I don't have a voice here. I shouldn't be saying anything. So, you know, as Sam said, you know, choose your moment, get you sort of, you know, in the door first. But, you know, you've got to believe in yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, I used to be very frightened about asking questions for fear of looking stupid, but I just thought, right, I'm just going to do it. So the first time my hand would be shaking, I'd be trembling, you know, my heart would be good. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes, Yeah.
I think also when you're asking a question, it's good. We always say to our grads, have a think about, okay, what is it that's bothering me? Why can't I do this? And come up with go to your manager with, okay, I'm struggling with this. Maybe this is the way forward. And even if it's wrong, if you show that you've tried to understand why you may be finding something difficult, and then coming up with a solution, even if it's the wrong solution, it shows that you are trying to move something forward, which is, I think, is positive. It's about listening, observing, initially, as you said, sort of work out where the land lies, who the people are, who are the right people, who's going to be useful to you more than other people, where am I going to get that, who's the best person to go to for what you class as the silly questions, although we always say no question is too stupid. But I think if you show you've put some thought into it, it's never going to go down badly.
Yeah, curiosity, isn't it? It's curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when it comes to meetings, again, this probably will apply to bigger, well, companies, you know, we're also addicted to our screens, that I think, you know, whether you're watching a webinar, whether you're in a meeting, there's normally a few extra screens going on, right? You know, either the laptop or you've got your phone, et cetera, et cetera. But and people notice that, don't they? So what is your advice on how to act in meetings? You know, Sheryl Sandberg was like, lean in. You know, what's the modern day take on that? Sam, what do you think?
I think meetings in the modern day are quite difficult, actually. I think because we've got so many different ways in which you can do meetings, online meeting, in-person meeting, you know, hybrid meetings, they are quite difficult. But I personally believe that if the person is meeting someone, meet them in person. Try your best to meet them in person, because you can't replicate that meeting on a screen. It's not always easy, but try and do that. In terms of what to do with your phone, put your phone away. Just don't have it, not turn it over, nothing like that. Literally put it away, because the person wants to feel important. You know, you're taking up their time, they're taking up your time. They want to feel that sense of you are their priority. So having your phone on there, or answering a phone call, replying to messages in the meeting, that's a massive no-go for me. I get really annoyed certain times where we're having a meeting and I can see someone on their laptop and I know they're not taking notes, but they're sort of working on the side or sending an email. No, give me your time. So that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is have a moment of their time in order to develop something. So I think I think they don't get talked about enough, how to approach yourself in a 2024 meeting. I think we do lose that a bit, but put your phone away, eye contact, and just make it an enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Because also, like, laptop is like, I just think it's like a barrier. You know, you put your laptop, it's like you need to get the big water bottles and the laptop and the phone. It's like a big wall there. Yeah. So Lyndsay, what else about how to act in meetings? You know, any tips?
Yeah, I mean, I would always visualize how I want the meeting to go. So I would kind of sort of mentally prepare, you know, how I imagine it going, which will get me in a good state of mind for it. I'd also think about what are the aims of the meeting. And it might just be that it's a first time introduction, which is fine, but it might be you're pitching something. And you're going to think about how, if I can control this meeting, obviously you'll see what happens and you'll roll with it, but you're not going to go straight into the pitch. You're going to do a little bit of small talk, a little bit of checking in, but you don't want to waste all of that time on small talk and not get to, oh, I've missed my 3 points that I wanted to make. So I would have a lot of clarity about what is it I'm trying to achieve in this meeting? What do I want to come away with? You know, if it is a pitch or an interview or a follow-up or, intelligence or, whatever it might be. So I'd really kind of think that through. Again, lots of preparation. We've talked about all of these things before. Do your homework. If you're meeting someone for the first time, check their LinkedIn out. See if you can find a commonality so you can build some rapport. So Joe spoke about, maybe it's a football team or golf or, whatever it might be, just to sort of break the ice. Or a TV show they've worked on, make sure then that you have watched it, because you'll come across that. So I would just visually imagine how I'd want it to go and think about, when I leave that meeting, what would success look like? Brilliant. What would that mean? Yep, that was a good meeting. I'm able to do my next actions.
Yeah, it keeps you focused, doesn't it? And how about you, Joe? What are your top tips on how to present yourself for success in meetings?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, one of the things I've written down when I was thinking about this is turn your phone off. Make sure you've got no distraction from the person in front of you, and then engage. I was talking to some of my colleagues this morning, and they said they hate it when people just sort of lean back in their chair and they look disinterested. And as Lyndsay said, I think that's a great suggestion of visualizing how you want this to go and driving that forward. it all comes down to preparation and positivity and being professional at the end of the day. It's I think if you do those things, you're not going to go wrong. But it's just so important to look engaged. Well, not just to look engaged, to actually listen. It's one thing to be nodding and then someone asks you a question, you think, I've got no idea. The idea what you just asked me because I was off in a world. We're so time poor that when you do get that chance, that opportunity, make the most of it. Listen, engage.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of, what I'm getting is like presence. It's presence, like eye contact, you know, being present with your energy, just establishing that connection, isn't it? That human connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, making that time matter, making it rememberable, making an impact. Okay, so before we get
think about your sort of tone of voice and your body language as well. So as you get more practice at it, I know when you're nervous, you can talk quite fast. So think about, do I need to lower my voice a bit? Do I need to slow down a bit? You know, so, you know, as you get more accomplished. Sorry, Tracy, I cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry. Just we've got about 5 more minutes before we go to questions. So I just wanted to tackle networking. If people are going to their first networking events, you know, well, how do you open the conversation? What's your approach, Sam? First conversations with people.
So I always, if it's a network event I'm not used to going to, or the first time I'm going to, I always turn up early. And I don't turn up early for a lot of stuff, but a networking event where I know I'm not necessarily going to know a lot of people, I will turn up early. I've also got a tactic. I hope no one laughs at me. First thing I do is go to the toilet. I take the long way round to the toilet so I can suss out the room and just work out, okay, who do I think I can approach? Who can I talk to? So I'll take a long way around the toilet, I come back, and then I sort of base myself near a bar, just because people are more likely to be by themselves near a bar. So, and that's where I'll just find the first person I'll try and talk to and go from there. But it's a very daunting experience going to a networking event by yourself, not necessarily knowing anyone, but it's so important. So for me, it's just getting that sort of, okay, I've seen the room, I know what I'm working with. Now let's go out there and try my best. And you know, there's no expectation. You don't need to win work every time you go to a networking event. You're just trying to build new networks, build new contacts, and hopefully see where it goes. So it's just demystifying a networking event and just being your best, doing what you can do, presenting yourself in the best possible way.
Yeah. I go one up on you. I recommend you do a figure of 8 when you first get there.
Oh, nice.
Then you cross over. Yeah, you see where the loo is, you can get a drink, put your coat away, and then you can scope the room that way.
I like that.
Yeah, and also to go a bit go with a mission, you know, and a target, you know, mission and target. Why are you there? To use Lyndsay's technique, what does success look like out of that evening? Yeah, but brilliant.
You know,
I love that.
A lot of good networking events will actually release the attendees beforehand. And that's also really helpful. So you can sort of like pick who do I want to speak to. And if you get there early, you can ask the host, oh, has Lyndsay turned up? Has Joel turned up? I'd really like an introduction to them.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know, that's a direct, and the host will love that because that's ultimately what they're there to do, to connect people.
Yeah, it's a professional. Yeah. We're not there for fun. Well, we can have fun, but we're not there, you know, we are there to develop professional contacts. Okay, Lyndsay, what happens if there's a free bar? Like what is the etiquette nowadays? Can people in my day, people got plastered until 2 or 3 in the morning. What goes on now then? What's acceptable?
No, it wouldn't be. I mean, to be honest, if I'm at a networking event, I'll be lucky to finish one drink because you're so busy talking, chatting and moving around. As you say, you know, you have to remember you are at work and it's just not a good look. So you have to, you know, prepare yourself for the day. Make sure you've eaten before you've gone or had a good lunch and things, because one drink could be enough to give you you know, kind of make you tipsy if you haven't eaten all day as well. So you are there, as Trace said, to work and to expand your network. So if you're doing it right, you'd be lucky to have 1 or 2 drinks because you will be moving around. So I usually have one warm drink in my hand at the end, and then I might take myself off to a bar later with a friend to meet up and relax, but certainly not in that room. I would usually set myself a target to say I'm going to speak to at least 5 new people. And it just gives you some focus. I think it doesn't matter what age you're at or what stage of your career. There are some days you turn up and you think, oh, let's go. You have to kind of, you know, get yourself ready to do it. I mean, you know, we're all communicators, we love it, but you know, it does take energy. And I think going into a room on your own is really tough still now, even with 30 years experience. If you've got a colleague, it makes it with you, it's a little bit easier. So yeah, it's
I mean, you know, I do a session called How to Network Like a Ninja, and I always ask people to put their hands up on, you know, who in the group likes networking. And on my mathematics, it's basically about 98% of people do not like networking.
Why do we do it to ourselves?
Well, that's the point. You've got to have a mission. How does it serve my purpose? How does it serve my career? That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm going out rather than staying at home watching whatever it is. Yeah. And Joe, what are your tips on engaging with people when you're networking? Yeah.
I think once again, it is the be prepared. As Sam said, you know, if they've sent out a list, get 5 names on there and think, right, if I talk to nobody else, I've got these 5 names, and learn a little bit about them. So you've got that, because half the time it's just that initial conversation opener. I think that's the difficult thing. Once you've broken the back of that, you can get talking. You're not going to make friends with everybody, but if you can get into the heads of the people, or win work, but if you can get into the heads of 1 or 2 people every time, you've done your job. But as everyone's quite rightly said, you know, it is work. You mustn't see these things as a just because there's a free bar. Again, dress appropriately. Make sure you're feeling, just like the interview, make sure you're feeling as good as you can feel when you walk into that room. You've got something on that's making you feel good. You've done a little bit of homework. You've recognized the faces from LinkedIn if they've got a photo on there, so you can go in, have that opener. But don't set yourself ridiculous targets either. Don't be down on yourself. And if it doesn't go the way you wanted it to, then you can't, you know, just accept that, learn from it, move on.
Yeah, I think use your energy in the right way, you know. There'll be another time. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. So we're we're 2 minutes towards the hour. The panel have agreed just to stay on a little bit extra to do questions. So I'm going to just do these. I'm going to pose the questions that have been put for me in the chat. First one, connecting with people on LinkedIn with I've got a basic account and you can't send them a message. So is just sending a connection request okay? Any tips on that?
Yes, fine to do. Fine. If they don't accept, they don't accept. I think just try it. I mean, I would usually accept with people that are showing they're in a similar industry to myself that seem vaguely credible. So yeah, do it.
And then follow up. And actually the other tip, I can't remember who it was that said was, you know, if there is somebody you want to connect with, you can start liking their posts and commenting on their posts, can't you? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's it. How do you develop rapport with people you have not met across socials? Sam, how do you do that?
So how do you build a rapport with people you haven't met through socials?
Yeah.
Oh, I
think the lingo is, do you slide into their DMs?
Oh,
that may mean something else, Tracy.
Oh, does it? Okay. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Sorry to know the show. Yeah.
No, but you're
actually,
right.
Yeah. During COVID, that's basically the only way you could build a rapport with people. And I guess you do, like the DM. But I think you've got to be visible. So if you end up liking their posts and commenting and things like that, people will notice your name, I guess. Yeah. And then you can sort of get a situation where maybe you get an email address or you get a connection, you can talk to them directly, and you just take it from there. But then I think as soon as you meet someone online or something, or socially, you have to move that to in person as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You just have to do that. So I guess that's it. Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm like breaking up.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I have to say, like in lockdown, I followed this amazing ballet dancer, Stephen McRae, and he snapped his Achilles on stage at the Royal Opera House. And I was amazed by this story. And I was doing a podcast at the time about resilience and blah, blah, blah. So I reached out to him on Instagram and asked him to be on my podcast, and he came on my podcast. So I think, like, you know, communication is all different ways now, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's just probably starts with appreciating their stuff, doesn't it? Yeah. Joe, if I can ask you this one, would you recommend you kind of answered it, but anything else you can add? Would you recommend asking for feedback after rejection from recruiters?
Always ask. You can always ask. I would recommend it, but it's I think a lot of people are scared to nowadays. But there is no harm in asking. And if you don't get anything back, I would just sort of say, take a few minutes just to reflect how you think it went. Actually, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe next time. So that next time going forward, you've got work on that sort of, not script, because it shouldn't be rehearsed as such, but just think, yeah, okay, maybe I should have asked a bit more about them, or maybe I shouldn't have asked about, I don't know, money first up, or just, if you don't get the feedback, have a think yourself. Don't just keep going in doing the same thing and thinking, oh, why do I keep getting rejected? Take that time to
I mean,
think about it.
Yeah. Hopefully recruiters, you know, would find the time to give some useful, constructive criticism. Yeah, because otherwise, how do we know? How do we learn? Yeah. Okay, Lyndsay, you mentioned mentors. One question here. How do you find a mentor as a freelancer?
Yeah, that's a good point. There are formal schemes. So if you're a member of a RTS, I don't know if RTS does some. I know they have a bursary scheme. Women in Film and TV certainly does. So you might be part of a professional organisation that has a scheme. But otherwise, I would reach out to somebody that you admire and ask them if they would mentor you. And it doesn't have to be, every week for an hour a week. And it can be, take different forms. It might be, can I just have a couple of coffees with you? I'm trying to sort of deal with this situation. So it can be more sort of informal as well. But starting with your own workplace, I think, is, if you're lucky to have a workplace, is a good starting point. And as I said, asking a more senior manager to say, can I have a coffee every now and then with you, just to sort of see how you progressed your career and what you did. So yeah, so just think about what would be useful to you. So a mentor is sort of different to a coach. So you're looking at a mentor that is somebody that's perhaps on a similar career path to you, or in the same kind of field as you, that can give you very tailored advice about how to make the next step. So you've just got to be really polite and ask, and if they can't do it, they can't do it. I mean, to be honest, when people ask, it's quite hard to say no if somebody is really flattering and so forth. But there are lots of schemes out there, but otherwise get creative and find your own.
Yeah. And I always think just reaching out saying, can I have 10 minutes of your time? Either a quick coffee or just a 10-minute Zoom to pick your brains about such and such. So the shorter and the briefer you make it, the less likely they are to say no. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And I think it's the last question. Thank you for all this great advice, panel. Would you recommend any good books, resources, or videos to further this advice? Obviously, there are resources that are available on the RTS website, everybody. But yeah, as a final thing, what would you recommend in that sense, panel?
Yeah. There are a lot of books. I've once read a book called 7 Habits. That was good.
Yes.
That was good. Atomic Habits. There's always these sort of books. But it's trial and error. Just keep going and you'll figure it out. It's a long career. That's what my mum would tell me. You've got a long time to work, so just keep going.
Sam, that's the book I always recommend. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Yeah. It's an old one, but my goodness, the advice in that is just life-changing, and I think career-changing. So if you haven't, look up that book. How about you, Joe?
I'm with Sam. It's down to a lot of trial and error. But as I said, don't just keep doing the same thing. Do think each time you go through a process, think about, okay, how could I have done that better, or what did I do right, if we're being positive. And there's so much out there on the internet, but it's talk to people, talk to someone that you think, I'd like to be where they are, and sit down and find out how they got to where they got to, and maybe the mistakes they made. And I think talking to people is the best way forward. You can get overwhelmed with information sometimes, and sometimes it's really just spending 5 minutes with the head of and saying, how did you get to where you got to?
Yeah.
What advice would you give me? I think there's nothing like actual people advice.
Mm. Mm. And Lyndsay, last but not least, what's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, all those kind of books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and as you say, the 7 Habits as well. But also, you know, the Stephen Bartletts who do this, you know, Diary of a CEO, those little short form TikToks and so forth. They're not to be underestimated. They really connect and can give you some really good tips. I'm a fan of neuro-linguistic programming, so NLP, where you use positive language. So instead of saying something's, oh, I'm bad at that, you say, I'm less good at that. You know, so you're always putting the emphasis onto the positive, because that's the bit that will stay with people. But there is so much you can do on that kind of personal development side of things, and we talk about it as soft skills. I think it's actually the hard skills, because that's the bit that's going to see you through your career. So yeah, there is a minefield out there, but just keep chipping away at it, and keep learning something every week or every day, and you'll get there.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, I just want to, we're going to wrap it up now, but if people would like to contact you, stay on your radar, follow you on LinkedIn or whatever, would you mind sharing how they do that?
Yeah, please link in with me. Yeah, so at Lyndsay Duthie. I am going on holiday, so I won't be replying instantly. So please don't think bad of me now. I've just bye. But yeah, it might take some time. But yeah, please link in with me. Very happy to do that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Same here. LinkedIn's the best way to connect with me. I've also got my Ampah takeaways that if anyone interested in film finance, they could watch. But yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can send me an email. Yeah, more than happy to speak to anyone.
Thank you, Sam. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, no, likewise. Please do link in. No question is as we keep saying, no question is a stupid question. More than happy to help.
Yeah, fabulous. And me, Tracy Forsyth, I'm also on LinkedIn at Tracy Forsyth Coach. And my company is called Fast Track to Fearless. So you can find me on Instagram at Tracy Forsyth Coach. And if you like this sort of subject about career confidence, then do follow me, because I do a weekly career confidence email. But for now, I would just like to say thank you so much to our lovely panel. Thank you to Jemima at the Royal Television Society and to Zach Duthie for producing and hosting this session. We wish everybody out there the best of success with their careers, lots of happiness, and let us know what you've taken from today, either through contacting the panel. What was your top tip and what resonates with you? And keep us posted on how you put all the advice into use. But for now, I will say have a wonderful afternoon and thank you again. Take care.